Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marketing Basics webinar. We will begin quite shortly in just a few moments. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Marketing Basics webinar, How to Get Customers. We're very happy to have you join us. I'd be remiss at first, I didn't say on behalf of the Indianapolis chapter of SCORE that our thoughts and best wishes go out to all of you that are on this webinar who undoubtedly have family and friends affected by COVID-19. We thank you for taking the time to learn about this topic during this period of stress and anxiety in our community. All businesses, large and small, are affected by this pandemic, and SCORE is here to help you in any way that we can. So whether you're exploring a business idea, have recently started a business, or have been in business for a long time, COVID-19 is having an effect, and SCORE will help you in any way that we can. We don't have all the answers, but we'll do whatever we can to assist. Also, it's important to note, this is the first webinar that Indianapolis SCORE has ever conducted. So with that in mind, we ask for your patience and understanding if we have some glitches with the presentation and the audio or the video causes any issues. We are new to this, and just like you are adapting to the new normal and doing our best to make the best of a difficult situation. So thanks in advance for your understanding. A few comments about the audience here. We've got a very nice collection of people audience. We've got 181 registrants. Looks like we've got about 90 or so online at this moment, and I assume more are going to be joining us as time goes on as they download Zoom and that type of a thing. But we're very happy to have everybody here. We've got people from the Indianapolis area, around central Indiana. I saw people from Florida and South Carolina, again around Indiana, Michigan City, Texas, Georgia, that type of a thing. So we're very happy to have all of you participating today. So with that in mind, just to introduce myself, I'm Tom Morgan. I'm a SCORE mentor, and I've been with SCORE for about, a year and a half. I spent about the last 40 years of my career in various marketing and marketing management roles, and am excited to put on this webinar today, along with my colleague, Craig Malmloff. And Craig, I'll ask you to introduce yourself.
All right, thanks everybody. My name's Craig. I've been doing strategic marketing and consumer product and service development for over 15 years. I've helped a range of startups and small business through my consulting company. And I look forward to working with SCORE here on our first webinar, and I'll be focusing on the digital marketing aspect. So a couple things on Zoom and this webinar as we get started. So you see in the bottom, you have some things, so you can chat. That just goes to us as the panelists. It doesn't go to the other attendees. You all also have been muted and you cannot do video, so you don't have to worry about showing yourself. We are going to utilize polls, and so I will turn those on when we're going to use them, and so you can vote and we can have some interaction as well. And then we do have the Q&A, and so you can go in there and do the Q&A and do questions, and then you can upvote them. And so if you see somebody that asks a question that you agree with, upvote it, and then at the back side of the presentation from 1 to 1:30, we'll be doing the Q&A as far as the top upvoted questions. So with that, the recording is being, or the webinar is being recorded, and the slides will be available after. So you don't have to write down a bunch of stuff real quick. They will be available after as well. So with that, those are the main basics of the webinar, and I turn over to Tom for us to get started.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me all right. So let's get started, shall we? So in terms of today's presentation, what we're going to talk about is a couple of different objectives. We're going to learn about marketing basic, principles and terminology and how to apply that to a small business. It is worth pointing out that marketing is a huge topic. Our goal is not to make you a marketing expert. I mean, you won't be an expert after an hour and a half webinar, but we do hope to give you a better understanding of what marketing is, what it's not, and how to use it in your business to be more successful. We're going to expose you to segmentation, targeting, positioning, and various marketing channels that hopefully you'll find helpful in your business. The best ways to benefit from this workshop is to consider these principles. They're fundamental principles when it comes to marketing, and they're very universal. So the slides will be available at the end of the webinar. We'll show you specifically how to get to them. But feel free to take notes, of course. But to be exposed to these fundamentals and the terminology and what marketing is about, you should think about the tactics that may apply to your business so that you can be more effective in the use of these tactical tools in the future. So why is it important to understand about marketing? Well, because marketing is how you get and keep customers. And that is what you want to do with your business. And unless you're a huge multi-billion-dollar revenue company, you've got limited resources. That said, having worked myself for small businesses, medium-sized businesses, and large businesses, all businesses have scarce resources. There's no such thing as an unlimited checkbook. And so wise allocation of those scarce resources is very important in marketing. So as we look at marketing and what it is, well, it is a very large umbrella process with the goal of designing and creating goods and services that move from concept to end user. It's definitely an art and a science, and it certainly encompasses a number of different disciplines. These disciplines include too many to mention, really. I mean, it includes market research, product or service design, product or service development, message testing, graphic design, because you can create a fantastic message and fantastic content, but if it's not graphically designed appropriately to have what we call in the business stopping power, then it is not going to be as impactful. So from the high level, when we say what is marketing, marketing is where you've got a message like you see on the left, and you're trying to get it to a customer, which you see on the right. And you've got to get that message across one way or another. And marketing, to use the big MBA term, so to speak, is demand creation. Demand creation, i.e. creating demand, is what marketing is all about. So it's important to note that marketing is not sales. Many times people confuse marketing and sales. They don't understand, excuse me, they don't understand that marketing is different from sales. Sales is a critical function. Sales is very important. Sales is direct sales, typically where one person for the company is meeting in person to a customer, which could be a business or a consumer or a retailer, and that is a one-on-one channel of communication. Direct sales is a marketing channel. It's a marketing channel just like direct mail, email marketing, TV commercials, web advertising, and other ways to create demand. So sales is just one channel in your marketing mix. Not to undersell its importance, but it's best to understand the difference between marketing and sales, and that sales is one of the channels by which you can get your message to your customers. So now we're going to move on to a key concept in marketing. It's called STP Marketing. STP Marketing, STP stands for Segmentation, Targeting, and Positioning. And this is really the core of marketing. This is how you get customers. So first, we're going to start with market segmentation. So at the academic level, and pardon some of the academic discussion here, but that's part of the goal of this webinar, is to look at the market and to slice up the customer pie, is to realize that the market that you are embarking on or involved in is cut up into various pies. There is not really one market. The market needs to be sliced up into various customer pies so you can decide which ones to target. When we look at common segmentation avenues, markets can be segmented by demographics, by user segmentation. There's something called value or psychographic segmentation. So you need to look at your market from a holistic viewpoint. You need to get market information so that you can decide what is my market in the first place and what market segment am I, my passion, and my product or service best suited to serve. There's a lot of sources that you can get market information. One of the ways that we like is through market research. And there's primary and secondary market research. Primary market research being essentially where you go out and talk to people face-to-face, one-on-one. Secondary market research is where you go to a database. And we at SCORE recommend what we call lean market research, as well as database information. Lean market research being where you go out and you talk to people about your concept or your idea or your existing product or service, and you ask them what they think about it. And the way to ask them about it, I'll introduce you to a four-letter marketing word. That four-letter word in marketing is bias, B-I-A-S. That's a four-letter word because you want to avoid bias when you're doing primary market research. If you create a lean market research tool where you go out and ask 50 or 100 people what they think about your product or your service or your message or the target, determining the target customer, you do not want to ask your family, you do not want to ask your friends because they're biased. They want to help you. They want to give you the answers. They want to give you encouragement, etc. So you need to do unbiased market research and get some good secondary market research information. One of the sources, the Indianapolis Public Library, has databases, and you can talk to your SCORE mentor for access. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that the Indianapolis Public Library, like all public libraries, they're closed right now. Well, two thoughts. Hopefully, before too long and this COVID-19 is over, the libraries will be open. We do have a contact at the Central Library downtown. His name's Jim Mladenovic, and on your screen is his phone number and his email. Now, of course, he's not working now. However, the good news is that in this period of doing everything virtually, Indianapolis Public Library databases are available. You can go to ipl.org and you can go in and you can search those databases. You do have to have a Indianapolis Public Library library card in order to use those databases. If you don't live in Marion County and you live in surrounding counties, I'd recommend that you look at the local public library and see what kind of access you can get. I happen to live in Carmel. The Carmel library is closed, but with my Carmel Public Library card, I can get into their business databases and I can get into very useful information to understand the market and to go to references like Reference USA, which is a very, very popular one. So, in this time when you're stuck at home, there is a way, whether you're just Googling or you're creating a primary market research questionnaire, or if you're going to your public library website, that is, you can still get segment information. So that is a quick overview of segmentation. I'll give an example here in a moment about segmentation, targeting, and positioning. But as we move on to targeting, that's the second priority. Don't confuse, as the slide says, segmentation and targeting. You've got to divide up your pie and then pick your slice. Stated another way, you've got to determine of the various segments out there, after you identify those segments, which sandbox you're going to play in. And this is a very key step. So, in this example, just academically, I've identified 4 segments, just called them A, B, C, and D. And, you got to take a look at those segments and target the ones that are going to be most helpful for you and your business. As we look at the textbook approach, which particular segment do you want to target? I don't know how well you can see it on your screen, but you'll see there's an A, B, C, and D. There's kind of I guess I'll call it a medium-sized A. The B is supposed to be a little smaller. The C is supposed to be bigger, and D is slightly smaller than the C. I don't know if that shows up on your screen, but as you look at that, you want to pick the particular segment that you want to target. General criteria that you look at is the size of the segment, how much growth is going on in that segment, because it could be a large segment, but it's not growing. And you may, based on your product or service, choose a smaller segment that's really growing. And that, again, is based on data. You can also look at profitability and which segment is most profitable. Now, one's knee-jerk reaction may be to look at this and say, hey, well, C is the largest segment. That's what I'm going to go after. However, one of the key things at the bottom of your slide is the competitors. Where are your competitors? What segments are they pursuing? As a general rule, not an ironclad rule, but as a general rule, most competitors are going to go after the largest segment. So that's where you're going to have to use your segment analysis and look at the competitors to see what segments they're playing in, which sandbox, if you will, they're playing in, and where are you going to go. So you're going to have to target. So you may target that largest segment. You may target the smallest segment. There's also a targeting way to determine targeting is and looking at the distinct segments, and who knows, maybe they're all equally attractive to you, but you may choose to go after certain target segments because that is most beneficial as you do an analysis of not only the competition, but your strengths and weaknesses for your specific product. And then positioning. Positioning is very, very key. Once you've looked at the segment, you've chosen your segment, you've targeted which segment you're going to go after, your product, and I need to use product and service synonymously here. So if you see product and if you are in the business of a service, just insert the word service there. But if your product or services position is dependent, your product or services position is dependent on its perception by the customer, the place it occupies relative to other competing products. Because it does not matter what you think the customer's perception of your product or service is. What does matter is the perception of your customer. And I can't emphasize that enough. And that needs to be utilized in your positioning, which is then communicated throughout your communication tools, which we'll talk about in a minute. So positioning is, in fact, the way you communicate your message from your company to your customers. And a key thing that positioning does is differentiates from the competitors. We talked about some terminology here. We've talked about STP, segmentation, targeting, positioning. A couple more terms here is positioning is really what's your offer? What's the USP, which stands for your unique selling proposition. It's also known as the value proposition. It's also known as the brand values. It can also be the ODT. What's the one thing different that your product or service offers compared to the competitors? So those are a few key terminology items that you need to think about. I'm sure you've heard phrases like value proposition and USP and the brand values and what's all that? Well, that basically, to distill it down into its simplest form, means what's the one thing different that you have to offer to your customers that your competition does not. Okay, and that is the bridge to your customers. So let's take a look at an example. Examples are, very powerful, of course. So why not take a look at Tesla? Tesla's got a very strong brand positioning. We all know Tesla. We've heard about Tesla. Of course, I put the Model S up here, wishing I had a Tesla Model S, but they've done a good job of positioning their brand. So Tesla, as you know, has positioned themselves, at least with their initial models, as a luxury brand. And, it's expensive. The Model S is, they're trying to down market and come out with more mass consumer Teslas. But initially, it's a luxury brand, which is a common rollout strategy. You come out with a luxury brand and then you go down market. Their initial Tesla advertising left price out completely. They talked about how they're eco-friendly, they're electric, they differ from gas-powered luxury vehicles, and they differentiate themselves with an air of coolness and neatness, and they've got, various modes and ludicrous modes, and have really gotten into IT, and even used the CEO, Elon Musk, as sort of a Tony Stark-like character. So, this is a good, strong positioning of a product. And there's a million examples of positioning. This is just one that, for the purposes of our short time together, I chose to use. I'm going to use another example here about a company called Quidel. And Quidel is a $1 billion medical device company. So I don't know if you can see my pointer here, but they're a B2B, which is business-to-business marketer of pregnancy tests. So here we're going from autos to pregnancy tests. So they've created a pregnancy test that's quicker and more reliable than the competition. They're attracted to the B2C, which is the business-to-consumer market. i.e. home pregnancy tests, and considering selling it in retail outlets like CVS and Walgreens, for example. And they've got the money. They did quite a bit of consumer research. And, like we were thinking about the A, B, C, D segments before, they identified 2 segments and embarked on a multiple targeting strategy. And for each target segment, they came up with a different position. And I think this example hopefully drives home some of the concepts about segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So I mentioned that they did market research, and with the market research, they discovered that there was a segment that they called the fearfuls. Now take a look at this. So the fearfuls, what's a fearful? Well, these are possibly pregnant women aged 16 to 42 whose income ranges from unemployed to $100,000 a year. They do not want to become pregnant and are hoping for a negative result. They're extremely nervous about the test, but view it as something that they must endure in order to relieve their uncertainty and hopefully quell their fears. So that's a fearful. Now they found another segment. That segment was called the hopefuls. And look at this, possibly pregnant women, age 16 to 42, income range unemployed to 100,000, same thing. These hopefuls, however, are trying to become pregnant and are hoping for a positive result. They're extremely nervous about the test and its implications, and they see the test as something that may mark the start of a happy new phase in their lives. So you can see these are 2 completely different segments. So what did they do? So as we look at what Quidel did, as we look at the hopefuls and the fearfuls and how this translates into things like the 4 Ps, which we'll briefly touch on in a minute: product, place, price, and promotion. So let's first take a look at we did the segments, the hopefuls and the fearfuls. So let's take a look at the positioning. The positioning for the hopefuls, the simplest, most trusted way of knowing when your family will grow or begin. Very positive. The fearfuls, I misspoke, a reliable source of peace of mind in 30 seconds, right? So you can see the positioning different there. So how did that manifest itself in the brand name? Well, the hopefuls chose the name of conceive, right? Because the hopefuls want to conceive. The fearfuls, of course, they don't want to conceive. They just want to know whether they're pregnant or not. So they chose the name Quick View. I don't know how well you can see it, but it also says Semi-Q HCG Combo Test. So you'll know it stands for Semi-Quantitative Human Chorionic Gonadotropin Combo Test, right? So very, very scientific, if you will. So how does that manifest itself in the packaging? Well, look at conceive. These are the hopefuls. We've got a beautiful picture of a bright-eyed baby here with the beautiful cheeks and a beautiful nose and bright eyes and just a beautiful picture and nice packaging. How could you not love that baby, right? Whereas we look at the fearfuls, they don't want any of that. They just want something scientific. They want something that's going to be, that they might see in a doctor's office or something very generic. They just want a quick view. They don't want the baby. So you can see how that segmentation and the targeting and the positioning is manifested in the packaging. Let's go further. Where is this located in the store? Well, conceive is with the other home pregnancy tests. Whereas the fearfuls Quick View is put over with the condoms, other things that can prevent pregnancy. And if we go further, we'll also see the price. As you might imagine, people who want to start a family and they're very excited to start this new, warm, wonderful chapter in their life, they're willing to spend more money than somebody who just wants to know if they're pregnant or not. So I think this is a good example, real life example of segmentation, targeting, and positioning. So as we look at the positioning lessons from this example that we just went through, it's not what you sell, it's what they buy, right? So they're buying peace of mind that they are not pregnant, or are they buying the beginning of their family? And the position must reflect what those customer needs are. And as you look at different segments, these different segments has different needs. The different needs lead to different positions, and that different positioning strategy leads to different marketing communication. So to summarize the segmentation, targeting, and positioning, you'll see the slide here. I won't go through everything, but it's really what we talked about. We talked about the segmentation and identifying the basis for the segmentation and the characteristics of those segments, and then targeting those segments and evaluating the commercial value of those segments, and then to select a segment to be your main focus, and any additional ones that you might want to include. And then the positioning, develop a detailed plan for positioning your product or your service in those segments. And from that, you get your marketing mix to take advantage of those segments. And so that's summarized in this next slide as we talk about, well, the topic of this webinar, marketing basics. Well, this is the marketing basics. This is the basic steps. Like I just reviewed, you decide the basic segmentation, you profile the segments, you determine the segment attractiveness to you and your business and your product or service, you select, you determine your positioning, and you develop the marketing mix. This is a key slide, in my opinion. If you're going to remember one thing from this portion of the webinar, this is it. So, moving on. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but there are the critical P's of marketing. Many of you know this, maybe some of you this is new, but just for a quick review. The P's of marketing: product, price, place, and promotion. And product, again, service is synonymous because we've become, more of a service economy than a product economy. So I think I've got one slide of each on these, but the product or the service is the specific product or the service that you offer. What do you offer? Be sure that you have a clear understanding of what you're offering so that you can then provide a clear definition of what it is you're offering. In fact, Peter Lynch of Fidelity Investments says that it should be, your product or your service should be so simple that you should never invest in any idea that you can't illustrate with a crayon. Price kind of speaks for itself, but just to be sure we go over that, you need to cover your cost, obviously, to stay in business. How about that for your financial portion of this webinar? That said, you need to be competitive. I've got a client who has a product, and the cost of her product is $30 to make, and she's been trying to sell that product for $140, $150. And a quick Amazon look when we were having our mentoring session indicated that very similar products are for sale on Amazon for $40 and $50 and $60. So, I'm not meaning to say something negative, but, sometimes we get in our own world, our own silo, and we forget about the competition. We've got to do some market research and understand what the competitors out there are charging for potentially similar products. And it needs to be in line with customer value. There could be things maybe like the Tesla on the previous example that people were willing to, pay more for because of their perceived value. And of course, as you know, something that may be more expensive may be perceived as better. That doesn't mean that you need to charge a lot for your product, but it may be perceived as better. You'll see here, I've got a couple of vodkas, Grey Goose, a very, highbrow, if you will, top shelf vodka, as opposed to Seagram's. And, that's considered to be a, lesser quality, lower cost type of a vodka. I'm not a vodka drinker, but I've done research and I've talked to vodka drinkers, and they tell me that in blinded studies, they can't really tell the difference between vodkas. There may be some of you out there who say, oh, there's a difference, and maybe there is. But, you know, Grey Goose is very expensive. Seagram's is not expensive, but Grey Goose is a very, very good selling product, and maybe because of the price point, and it's being perceived as better. So there's a lot of psychology that goes into pricing as well. As a side note, and Craig mentioned this earlier, you've got the Q&A on your screen there. If you've got some questions, you know, feel free to put the questions there, and then we will address those towards the end. So anyway, we talked about product and price. Let's go to place. And places is, you know, where and how your product gets to the end user. As you can see, there's a number of different ways to get your product to the end user. You know, it can go from a manufacturer to a wholesaler to a retailer and then to a consumer, manufacturer straight to a retailer to a consumer. We're seeing a lot where manufacturers are selling directly to consumers. You know, that can be through websites, that can be through Shopify, that can be through a number of different channels. But keep in mind that the place, which is often referred to as channels of distribution, this is different from channels of communication. All right, so there's a difference, just to reiterate, channels of distribution is different from channels of communication, which we'll talk about in a minute. Speaking of that, there's promotion. Promotion is everything you do to promote your product and introduce you, if you don't already know it, to another term. That term is FAB, F-A-B, features, advantages, and benefits. This is where you've got to communicate the features, advantages, and benefits of your product or service, and that is heavily what goes into influencing your customers to buy. FAB is what tells the story of your product and why customers should buy it. And that includes a host of activities from advertising to sales promotion to tell the features, advantages, and benefits with an emphasis on benefits. Benefit selling is extremely valuable. So as we look at the various channels of marketing, there are a lot of channels of marketing, and we'll call that something creative like multi-channel marketing. As you see on there, there's a number of different channels that you can market your product through, and they're all listed there. It can be brick and mortar. Sorry, I see I misspelled physical location, but you know, there's just a number of different channels that you can market your product through. And it can be further divided into traditional media and digital media, which we're going to talk about in a moment. So we'll go through some traditional media here real quickly. Broadcast media, TV and radio. You see a lot of commercials on TV. Some are good, some are bad. I see myself scratching my head as a marketer at some of the commercials that I see, and I wonder what are they trying to sell there? Are they more interested in a humorous message, or are they trying to sell me a product by showing the benefits? There's print media, as you know. Excuse me if you heard me cough. There's print media, you know, there's consumer media, there's trade publications, there's newspapers, which is, of course, a dying breed, but there's online newspapers, there's direct initiatives like direct mail catalogs and other. So, you know, it's very traditional as we look at traditional media and when to use them. You know, TV, you know, this is mass media that we're talking about. TV and print media typically are used for brand name building, especially national brands. You know, when you think about major consumer goods or major companies out there, that do TV, this is not something that, small and medium-sized businesses typically would do. When you think about Geico with their Get-Go, or if you think about Carfax with their Carfox, those are all TV commercials that are, there's a huge spend behind that type of TV promotion, which I would not recommend for our audience on the webinar today. Newspaper and radio, pretty much the same thing, but that can be adapted for more local, local advertising and sales, especially for if somebody's having a sale event. If you think about department stores, car dealers, if we, think of the car dealers out at 96th and Keystone, they're always out advertising. Some of them are good, some are not, but it's a traditional media way to proceed. Anybody else tired of the car dealership radio commercial, about the Sisters of Savings? I know I am. So when we look at promotions, there's a lot of different types of promotions. Basically, what promotion in this context is where we're using an incentive to entice a consumer to buy your product or service. And there's a lot of different promotions. Here's some, common promotions. In the interest of time, I'm not going to go through each of these. You can read them. Here's some examples for, the promotions. And you've probably seen these, maybe used these, but if you choose to do a promotion, just make sure it's a compelling and hard-hitting promotion, something that you can measure and that you can see how effective it is, and make sure it's something that people are going to want to participate in. There's direct marketing, where you've identified specific consumers or a consumer group and you sell directly to them. But this direct marketing typically requires having a database or a way to get to them, whether it's mailing it to them at home with an individual mailer. There's also shared mailers, like Valpak. I often get targeted emails from Jackie's Gourmet service, because I used them once, got on there for my son's wedding and got on their mailing list. This happened to be one where they sent one out for Super Bowl party. There's targeted web advertising. So, these are all targeted, what's good about targeted is that there's less waste, as opposed to a television commercial that everybody's going to see, whether they're your targets or not. If you use a targeted tool, there's less waste. You're sending it directly to your targets in a specific zip code or geography that you want to target. It's measurable. You can compare your expenditures to your results, and you can experiment with different offers to see which ones are most impactful. A key component that is underutilized, in my opinion, in businesses, small and mid-sized businesses, is public relations, where you build a positive relationship between your company or brand with the public. And this employs unpaid media exposure. I'm not talking about where you pay to put an ad in a newspaper, Indy Star, or the various ones that are around on the north side of Indianapolis, or the ones that are in Westfield or Carmel or Zionsville. They're very powerful tools to get third-party exposure. This just happened to be, the illustration there happens to be a workshop that SCORE put on in conjunction with One Zone. We didn't pay for that, and you need to get some PR. And what's wonderful about that is it does cost effort, but it doesn't cost direct funds. It doesn't cost money. And it's important to remember that the media, they're not in the business of promoting products or services. They are in the business of presenting interesting and newsworthy content. They want to put something out there that is going to be of interest to their audience. if you think of the TV channels are always out there, and they want to put out something that is sensational. They want to put out something that is going to be of interest to their viewers or to their readership, and that's very important to them. So if you want to get something, which you can, for example, in Carmel, or current in Fishers, Geist, Noblesville, Westfield, Zionsville, newspapers, you can do it. You just have to come up with something that's compelling and interesting to them in order for them to publish it. And it can be free, which is wonderful. An advantage is that it's free. A disadvantage is that you may not be able to control the content that they write up in the article. Moving towards the end here, there's also additional ways to promote your product or service, and that's by going to shows. Almost every industry has a show. There's trade shows that are, for the industry. There's consumer shows for the public. This just illustrates the National Hardware Show, the Indianapolis Home Show, and shows, of course, can be regional, national, or even international. One of the clients that I have at Core, he's got a special business developing websites, and he's got a lot of experience in creating dental websites for dental practices, because his father was a dentist and he worked in his father's dentist as an office manager for a number of years. And so he was developing websites. So there's a lot of people out there developing websites, right? So he looked at the segmentation and elected to go into the dental office website development business, and has targeted that segment, and is positioning his website and all his communication material to dental offices, and how he can make their website, and he can even put in content about things I can't articulate right now: root canals and cavities and toothpaste and various things like that. So he has identified the Association of Dental Office Managers to put an exhibit in, and to go to that type of a show. So that's an example. Shows and conferences are excellent sources for networking, establishing alliances, learning market segment information, learning about market trends and new items. So shows are something very good to consider. So that's kind of what we've reviewed real quickly: STP marketing and the 4 Ps and some promotional activities. Now we'll switch over to digital marketing, and digital marketing is a very broad topic, and we're going to do the best we can, thanks to Craig, to talk with you about digital marketing practices. So I'll now turn it over to Craig.
All right, thanks, Tom. Let me switch screens here. All right. So yeah, digital marketing. So a lot of things going on right now. So shelter in place, work from home, online schooling. With that, broadband online consumption has jumped 50%. And so that's similar to big events like Super Bowl, the Olympics. So definitely a big shift in consumers. And so with that, digital news, gaming, online grocery and food delivery, as well as streaming, like we're doing now with the Zoom webinar, and Netflix, of course, are surging. And so this is kind of the new normal for a while, and we need to do the best we can to manage through it. And so digital marketing is one way we can do that. Up next, we want to talk about digital landscape. And so the only constant is rapid change. So it is digital. It's very easy to change things quickly. And so here's the conversation prism. It was started in 2008 and it's been done every year for 2013. And you don't really need to see all the details in there, but what it represents was basically there were 250 digital companies at that time in 2013. Companies like Facebook, right? Twitter, and then there's companies that aren't really around anymore. So Foursquare, Clout, Flickr, and Periscope, if you remember those. So fast forward now to 2019, there are over 7,000 different digital companies. They're constantly being acquired. They're moving from free to pay. They're pivoting what they do. New ones are popping up. And so what's going to happen during this time? Are some going to go away? Probably even more going to be created. And so all of this can be used in one way or another to get more customers for you. But you need to understand your goals, and you got to make sure you're not distracted by the latest shiny thing. So that's where an overall digital strategy comes into play. So this is an example from HubSpot, and basically they're those building blocks that all those things can help assist with. It's not just one piece, right? It's not just a Facebook page, it's not just a TikTok account, but it's a multi-prong approach that leads strangers to customers and beyond that. And so we're going to talk about a couple different parts of this in the webinar here. We're not going to cover all of it, so continue to reference that. Looking forward to terminology, and so there's kind of three different parts of terminology. You'll hear people talk about owned, you'll hear people talk about paid, you'll hear people talk about earned, and then CTAs as well. And so Tom mentioned it a little bit, right, in his, as far as what it means in traditional marketing. In digital, it's very much similar. It just refers to digital things. And so examples for owned are ones that you control. So examples are a website, if you have a blog, if you have social accounts like Facebook, Instagram. Paid are channels you pay to leverage. So display ads, paid search ads, sponsorships. Earned are customer channels. And so that's where it's word of mouth, buzz, and then everybody's familiar with going viral, right? So those are earned. And then CTAs are just calls to actions. And so you want to make sure you have those calls to actions in your different types. Does everybody think they got it? All right, so we're going to do a little quiz here in the form of polls. And so on the bottom of your screen here, I will turn on the polls so that you can see it. Give me 1 second here. All right, so you should see the polls. And so we're going to go through several examples on screen, and then you can vote on the polls, and then we'll go from there and review them. So up first for the first poll is Splenda Facebook page. So it's a social account. Is that an example of owned, paid, or earned? And so you should be able to go into the poll and vote for which one you think. So this is number one. Are social accounts owned, paid, or earned? So make your selection. And then for the next one, so sponsored. Are sponsored owned, paid, or earned? So make your selection for the second one. Are sponsored owned, paid, or earned? All right. Go to the last one here. So buzz. Is buzzed owned, paid, or earned? So example here, once again, of this. So owned, paid, or earned. All right, I'll give you guys another couple seconds here to do the polls, and then we will tabulate the results and give you the answers. Give you about another 5 seconds here. Also, I'll take this opportunity, if you have questions, so there is a Q&A button, and so use the Q&A button to put your questions in. We'll address those at the end. All right, I'm going to end polling here, and we're going to show the results. So looking at the results here, so the examples we talked about, you can see owned, channels you control, right? So website, blog, social account. So yes, most of you picked that as far as social accounts are owned, so good job. The next one, paid. So channels you pay to leverage. So examples are sponsorship there. And so most of you got that one, good job. Another example there is a display ad. And then on the bottom is a paid search ad, so showing up first in search for specific terms. Then the last one is earned. And so earned is a customer's channel. So examples are word of mouth, buzz, viral, and the buzz was an example of earned. So good job you guys doing that one. I think it is a little tricky sometimes on earned. So sometimes earned will start as a owned or paid one and then spiral out virally word of mouth. And so you can see here with the Splenda, debunk the junk. That was one started by Splenda and then went from there. So moving on, so similar to how Tom talked about knowing your customer and audience, it's the same for digital. And so you can see there's a wide span of digital, right? So you have everything from your normal social channels, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest, that are kind of shallow and encompass everything. There's not always a lot of great communication, all the way to the bottom where you can think of bulletin boards, forums, specific Facebook groups and LinkedIn groups. They're very focused and specific about what they talk about. And so the main thing I want to get across here is know where most of your customers are. So your customers. I think we've all heard of stories of somebody doing the next hot thing, right? So, hey, I did a TikTok and got thousands of customers. Not everything works for everyone. So it can sometimes be a truly one and done, but do your research, do your STP, right? You're segmenting, you're targeting, and you're positioning, and then find out where your customer is on these channels. And then focus on 2 or 3 channels to start and do them effectively. For example, do a Facebook page and a blog. Don't try and focus on all of these. So it's very difficult to run all of these at once. Major brands even have trouble doing all of these at once. So make sure you focus on ones that you can be effective on. Moving on, so just as Tom talked about the 4 P's of marketing, there's 4 C's of social. So it's content, connecting, community, and curating. So we'll talk about these and break them down here on the next slide. So content is what you would expect. Anything text, visual, video, audio, UGC, user-generated content. And so the nice thing about content is you can repurpose it. So if you have great performing content that's a text and a visual, you can repurpose it, use it as a blog post. Likewise, you can take that blog post if it's successful and do an audio podcast on it. Likewise, you can take that content and then do a regular video on it as well. So always look at how you can repurpose great content and not have to create things from scratch each time. Also, utilize a monthly calendar. And so it's really hard in the moment, you know, on the day, on the week, trying to fill and post things throughout the week. So look at least a month out, 2 months out, and start slotting in day by day what you want to post and what your topics want to be, and it makes it a lot easier. Curating is the next one. So the online digital realm, right, it's a fire hose of information. And so filter other people's content and share the best with your consumer. And so it's a way, once again, to become an expert of, hey, look, I know what's important to my customers, and here I'm filtering what's all out there for you so that I can be an expert and share and provide value for you. At the same time, as you share the best, you'll see which people are developing great content and having high influence. And so you can start a dialogue with them and develop that relationship. So you can develop a relationship with your customers, obviously, but also high influencer sources as well, and see how you guys can work together. The last one's community. And so participate in the dialogue. So don't just talk to people, participate in a dialogue. So you have to be authentic and talk to people. I think all of us have heard one or been targeted one time or another and just kind of yelled at, right? And so take the time, earn trust from the established group. So looking at social plan basics, these are some things you want to consider. So make sure you have a goal. What type of relationship are you trying to have with the customer? What social channel are you going to be on? What type of content works best for each channel? And then what metrics are you going to use? And so with social, usually you're trying to build awareness, maybe engagement, maybe conversion. type of relationship can be anonymous, right? You don't care who it is, you're just blasting it out there. It can be a specific segment or customer, or it could be a specific community as well. Social channels we kind of talked about, same with content, but metrics, make sure you're measuring things. So KPIs, key performance indicators, and I like the saying of the things that get measured get done, right? And so likes, followers, shares, comments, traffic to your site from social, those are all things to look at and see what your goals are. And then the last one, test, learn, and repeat. So digital is constantly changing. And so things that worked before may not work now. And then things in the past may work again. So depending on your audience, test, learn, and repeat. So one example here is, once again, looking at Splenda. And so they're doing a Facebook post here. And so you can see they have some text. They have a website that they're offering a recipe, and then they're asking people to share their moment and if they have a favorite recipe. And so from this, you can see they're looking for engagement on Facebook and Instagram. They don't care who it is. It could be somebody anonymous, or it could be somebody that's following them. They use text, they use a picture. They're asking for user-generated content as well. And so their metrics, likes, shares, comments, and then obviously site traffic to that site as well. Next one we're going to look at is email plan basics. So similar to social, you have your goals of awareness, engagement, and conversion. You have the types of relationships that are similar. It's just the type of content is a little bit different. And so you can have new content. You can position yourself as an expert in the content. You can tell a story. You can be just transactional, and then you can be promotional as well. I think we've all kind of received one of those promo emails at one time, right? And then your approach can be bulk. So you blast it out to a large list. It can be journey oriented, where, hey, you have specific steps. You can think of shopping e-commerce as far as, hey, I bought it. I get a confirmation. I get that it's shipped. I get that it's delivered. And then there's personalization and segmentation as well. And so that's based on interactions from your website or from webinars. You can personalize and segment different emails. Metrics or KPIs for email plans. There's subscribers, open rates, click-throughs, traffic to your website as well. So once again, with these, test, learn, and repeat. And so email plan basic examples, similar to social, different kind of things. And so you can see the sweet dish here from Splenda, and that is their kind of subscribed magazine. And they're looking for, hey, they're offering a challenge, they're offering a promotion for a chance to win, and they're offering recipes as well. And so engagement, conversion, focusing on a specific customer and community. They're positioning themselves as the expert, as well as promotional material, and they're taking people along a journey and kind of personalizing and segmenting. And so for this, right, they're looking for subscribers, they're looking at their open rates, their click-throughs, and then traffic to the site. The last one we'll look at is SEO and SEM. So this is search engine optimization and search engine marketing. So the goals here are traffic generation to your website. And so there's all types here. So you can have paid search ads, you can have pay-per-click, you look at keywords, look at backlinks, and then the metrics here, conversion rate, cost per 1,000 impressions, cost per acquisition, bounce rates on your site, actual traffic to your site as well. And so the example here, once again, is splenda.com. And so you can use a tool called SEM Rush and basically look at the site, and it'll tell you, hey, what it perceives its authority to be, what the organic search traffic is, what they're paying search traffic, what number of backlinks they have and what are they, and then display advertising as well. So this is a great tool if you have digital competitors to run them through this and see what they're doing. And then are there things that you can borrow and do also? At the same time, you can look at parallel categories. So not only a direct competitor, but look at somebody that sells something similar to you and how are they doing it. And so once again, you can learn from other people what looks like working for them, test it, and see if it works for you. So some kind of basic tools. So content distribution, if you have a Facebook, Instagram page, instead of having to go in and post on each of those, you can use Hootsuite or Buffer, and you can schedule these out. So most of these have free options, and then for additional capabilities, you have to pay. And so I think Buffer, you can schedule 7 days out. If you pay, then you can schedule the month out. But once again, great ways to kind of automate. Email marketing, Freshworks, Constant Contact, and MailChimp, great ones to use. Web creation, WordPress.org, website analytics. Google Analytics is a great free one that gives you more information than you would ever need. And then we talked about SEMrush already as far as competitive research. So I know that was a lot in a little bit of time, but here's kind of the key takeaways that I make sure you grab. So create an overall digital marketing plan. Don't just focus on one, look at multiple ways. Know what channels most of your customers are on. So don't try and do all of those customers at once or all those channels at once. The 4 C's, so content, curating, connecting, and community. Then have a goal for the channel. Know the relationship you're trying to have with the customer. Know the approach you're taking. And then what's your KPI or metric for your plan as well? How do you know if you succeeded or not? And then always test, learn, and repeat. That is a big piece. And it's frustrating at times, but it's definitely a test and learn kind of approach. So with that, I know we did a lot, and it's a very broad top-level discussion, but we're going to go more in depth on future webinars. So one of them is already scheduled. It's for social media advertising with Toya Wilson Smith. So check our score.org website or Facebook page as well. You'll also be receiving an email after this webinar as well to sign up for this future one. So with that, I turn it back over to Tom.
Thank you very much, Craig. Now I just have to move this back over to me. Bear with me just a moment. Okay, so we're approaching the end here and pretty much on time. So some thoughts to recap in a way, and we talked about STP, and it's important to start with STP, segmentation, targeting, positioning, and then move to the tactical. And make sure you've got a clear positioning, because that's what's going to drive your activities going forward. We talked about traditional and digital marketing, depending on your product or service. You may move one way more than the other. Of course, digital is growing by leaps and bounds, not only in this current COVID period that we're in, but generally speaking. An important thing is to create a marketing plan. And that's a whole nother webinar, I think, and time that you can spend with your mentor. I do have the next slide that'll show you a little bit about that and a resource for that. And I think one of the take-home messages that we would provide is to don't try to be all things to all people. We've talked about, the way to narrow down who to go after, but the corollary of that, the opposite of that, needs to be stated. Don't try to be all things to all people, because if you try to be all things to everyone, you'll end up being nothing to everybody. So that's an important lesson that many businesses have learned the hard way. I spoke about the marketing plan. So this is an illustration of a marketing plan template. I don't know how well you can see it, but essentially it's best to look at it conceptually than actually. With the marketing plan, you put the months and the quarters across the top, and then you put down the left side the activities that you are going to participate in, the ones that you feel are going to make the most impact on your business. and you do it strategically. You determine, you know, what month you're going to do which initiative, and, you know, when's the best time to do it. You know, we talked maybe about, I don't know, newspaper or virtual newspaper advertising. You know, when are you going to do that? And if there's brick and mortar, you know, when's your in-store brick and mortar advertising going to occur as well? If there's going to be a show, you know, what kind of advertising are you going to do around that show or that special event, you know, that will help drive people to your booth, for example. And on the SCORE website down at the bottom, there's an annual marketing budget template. If you go to indianapolis.score.org, and you'll see here is where a marketing budget template is that we provide, we being SCORE, that you can utilize. And this, as well as the entire presentation, today's presentation, is available at indianapolis.score.org. So go to indianapolis.score.org and you'll get to our home page. Then when you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see it says something like click here, and it'll show the March 31st marketing basics how to get customers link. And that link is up now. So it's available if you choose to go to that after this webinar or another time. It's there now, ready and waiting for you. And so given that, we would like to thank you very much for participating in the webinar and taking time to spend with us. We do encourage you to sign up for mentoring at indianapolis.score.org. We're doing mentoring. I mean, normally we do face-to-face mentoring, but in these times we're doing mentoring over video, over the telephone, over, you know, FaceTime, Skype, whatever. So feel free to sign up for mentoring. And as Craig indicated earlier, you know, we are recording this, so you can go back and listen to it to your heart's content. And we also, we've got a Q&A session here. We'll see what kind of questions and things that you've brought up. But also wanted to mention that when you do leave this webinar, you're going to be given an evaluation form, and we'll ask you to kindly fill out the evaluation form about the webinar so we can know how we did, and more importantly, how we can do better in the future. So, Craig, thoughts on what kind of questions and things like that we have?
Yeah, for sure. So I think one of the questions was the slide deck. And so I think we covered that. So it is available on indianapolis.score.org. So you can get that slide deck now. So that's great. And then I think some of the other ones we'll just kind of tick off here as we go along. So if you have ones, continue to add them to the Q&A button on the bottom, and we will address them. And so one of the questions around promotions, Tom, I didn't know if you could go back in your deck. They were interested in seeing the promotion screen and specifically wondering what deal loaders were as well.
Yeah, let me see what I can do here and find it and see what we're talking about. Okay, yeah, so this was a, oops, let me make it bigger. Yeah, so what this is, our, you know, it's a list of common promotions. What a deal loader is where you, as a company, typically this is with a product, and you go to your wholesaler, your distributor, you tell them you're going to have a deal, your sales force is going to go in and, you know, call on retailers. And so when you've got a I don't know, I'll make this up, a 2-for-1 special, you know, buy one, get one free. We're going to have a, you know, special deal, special promotion. So this is where you would load the retailers so that they've got the product in stock. There's nothing worse than advertising, you know, through whatever advertising channels you use to say, hey, during the month of April, we've got a buy one, get one free. Go to your local, you know, grocery store or CVS or, you know, Whole Foods, whatever. And people go in there and it's not there. You know, that's a good way to create negative goodwill, if there is such a thing. It's a double negative there. But what a dealer loader is basically where you load the product into the location where the end purchaser would be able to purchase your product.
All right, good deal. Some of the other questions were around the digital side of it. And so I can take some of those. I think one of the questions was one of the tools called SEM Rush. Where can you find that? And so, yeah, so SEM Rush, you can just Google that. So SEM Rush, all one word, you can Google that and it'll take you to semrush.com. And so it's a free service, I think till 10. You can do 10 inquiries and then after that, they convert you to paid. One of the other questions was CTAs. And so examples of CTAs. And so yeah, calls to actions, they were included, excuse me, were included on each of the owned, paid, and earned. And so those are just when you're trying to get a customer to do things. So usually it's a button, it's a link, it's something that you want your customer to do.
Yeah,
one of the other,
if you don't mind my asking and adding on to that.
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
So, generally speaking, a call to action is, you know, just what it sounds like. I mean, in marketing, a call to action is an instruction to the audience to provoke an immediate response. You know, call now, click here, find out more, visit a store today. You know, so that's what a call to action is. And just because I had a slide on that, I thought I'd bring it up.
All right, perfect. Todd, do you mind checking the score page? There was some mention that the link was not there. Do you mind checking to make sure if that's on? So you can turn off your screen share and see if you can go find it to make it sure, and then we can share it with everybody to make sure it's actually there.
Sure.
One of the other questions we had was how effective are videos on Facebook pages? You know, especially for service-based businesses. So videos are very popular right now at this time, and so they are getting very good interactions. Definitely depending on what you offer, a video may be helpful to easily explain, you know, about your business. I think once again, it's kind of the cost and test and learn to see if a video actually is beneficial or not, and looking at your competitors as well. You know, do your competitors use video? Do they use another means? So all things to consider as far as if you use video on your Facebook page.
So I'm good. I just got to go back to screen share. Okay, so this is the Indianapolis.score.org landing page. So if I understood correctly, the person who sent that in said it wasn't there. So I'm on the site. I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom. It doesn't stand out as much as we would like it to, under upcoming events and RTV6. And down here it says click for slides of the March 31st, learn from the experts, blah, blah, blah. So if you click on that, then you'll get the PDF of the slides that were presented today.
All right, perfect. Thank you. One of the questions was about the programs at your local library. So yes, there are databases at your local library. You can access them remotely too. If you go to those library websites, you have a library card. So I believe one's called US Reference. And so basically it has information about businesses, and you can drill down to the zip code and street address to look at what businesses are in your area, and it will give you some generalization of that. Some of the other ones are business plans. So they have databases of business plans as well. So if you contact your library specifically, they will be able to help you with those databases. I think two other questions we have, we'll have to postpone to a longer time just as far as marketing for nonprofit organizations. So definitely a different realm for nonprofit organizations, but similar in that it is still a customer, right? So you're still looking at a customer and how you segment and target them. Tom, did you have any other thoughts on marketing for nonprofit organizations?
No, I think you covered it. It is a future topic, and if they contact SCORE, we can work with them.
Okay, great. I think one other one was just obviously B2B as well, and targeting, C-level people. So once again, we can work with you one-on-one. So if you go to SCORE, once again, indianapolis.score.org, you can find a mentor and set up a free hour session, and we can work with you as far as your marketing strategy for that. With that, I think we've exhausted all the questions unless anybody has anything else. All right. Well, thank you very much for your time. Tom, did you have anything else?
If you'll indulge me for the final speech, since we still have 63 participants.
Yep.
Why not? So in closing, and I apologize for the quality of this, but this will be our end.
And so, my friends, before we adjourn, I must tell you that as the years go by, I come to feel these get-togethers are really family reunions. It's a joy to visit again with many of you veterans who have meant so much to this company throughout the years. And it's also a joy to see the bright young faces of our new people. You are our future. Yes, this may be a great company, but in many real ways, it's truly a family. A family of honest men and women pulling together in the great American tradition. The tradition of a great land. The tradition of a great people. The tradition of progress. The tradition of honest toil. Men and women working toward common goals, providing the world of business with high quality and needed goods and services, and yes, earning an honest buck. And I won't apologize for that. I won't apologize for this great democratic free enterprise system of America. We're here to make an honest dollar. And I know that each and every one of you feel as I do. We have toiled to build this great company. The time has come to redouble our efforts. The future awaits us. And now is the time to act. Now is the time to move onward. I ask you to throw away old outmoded concepts. I ask you to discard uncertainties and doubts. I ask you to cast aside the past and move with us into the future. For the sake of our great country and everything that makes it great. For the sake of free enterprise. For the sake of the company. For the sake of the family. For the sake of the children. For motherhood. For apple pie. For puppy dogs and kitty cats. For everything that is near and dear to us, I ask you to remember just one word. The one word that makes it all possible, and that word is sell. I want you to get out there and sell, sell, sell. I want you to sell your socks off. I want you to sell your clothes off. Sell!